Hey yo, what is up YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Here today I'm going to be showing you guys the best Call of Duty graphics settings and just overall display settings and everything, right? So, first things first, you're going to load up COD. On the top left it might say shaders, installing or downloading shader, whatever. You're going to want to let that download and install because shaders are one of the most important things to get good FPS on this game. I learned from experience. I went from like 144 down to like 80 or 60. It tanked. So absolutely want that to install. Um, so we're going to go ahead and go over here to settings, graphics, display. So first things first, right? You need to be on full screen exclusive for the best experience. If you have multiple monitors, borderless, I get it, right? You want to be able to go left and right to your monitors. But if you're rocking single monitor or you want the least amount of input delay, full screen exclusive is where it's at. Make sure you're on your actual GPU, not integrated graphics. That would be hilariously funny. Can't even lie. I did that on my laptop once, and it was bad. So, yeah. Um, Screen refresh rate. This is something you can change in Windows settings, but also can be changed on here. I recommend the absolute highest, so 240 is my monitor. Absolutely highest. Same with display resolution. Don't force change it. Do whatever auto says because normally that's what your monitor is. You're gonna want to do whatever the highest or the actual whatever your monitor is, right? Display dynamic resolution. You turn that off. If you have a 1650 lower end graphics card, and you struggle to get higher frames, maybe and I would do like 80 to 100. If you're getting more than 100, then let her be. Graphics will absolutely tank when you're trying to get, more FPS. It just isn't worth it. Um, so VSync gameplay and VSync menus. Don't don't use this, right? If you have a graphics card, most of the time you're gonna have some sort of built-in software. So I know G-Sync and AMD FreeSync is what I use. FreeSync because I have an AMD card, but whatever graphics card you have, if you have a monitor capable of that, then use G-Sync or FreeSync. If you don't, and you get below like 120 FPS, you will have to turn VSync on because the screen tearing will be crazy. That was something I didn't like, but sometimes you got to overcome that when you have a lower end hardware. Um, Thankfully, I'm on better hardware now, so I don't have to deal with that. Custom frame rate limit. So whatever your monitor is, set that to gameplay. Menu 120, do like half of whatever your monitor does, so, or even I guess 120, just flat out. Out of focus, do 30. You don't want your system going hard, even in the background. There's no purpose. Now, when we are done optimizing your quality settings upcoming here, go ahead and come to display, restart shaders, close the game, reload it. It'll do shaders and it'll make everything run real smooth and it'll be great. Um, Display gamma, sRGB is the best one. If you have a TV or something old, then I guess do BT. Brightness, I recommend going slightly higher than 50 or whatever you see the middle one to be kind of gray. That's where I like it because you get to see better in the shadows. Not visible still is very black for me. So HDR, I have that off. Now, if your monitor supports it, go for it. I haven't seen any bit of, I mean, I've seen a little bit, but there's no performance impact heavily. So go ahead and use it. If your game looks better with it, um, more power to you. But mine, sadly, doesn't look that good with it, so I will leave it off. Go ahead and discard that. So, view. I do field of view 110. I just want pro players, they use 110 to 115. I recommend 110 just because it's the best middle ground in my opinion. ADS field of view. Affected independent basically zooms you in when you aim in again, so it's back to the normal like 60 or field of view or whatever. So you don't want that. You want the competitive advantage. Weapon field of view. I feel like they mix this up. I think narrow should be smaller and wide should be bigger, but it is the other way around. So you're gonna want to use wide to make your weapon, the smallest it can look. First person camera movement, least. You don't want it being high. Same with third person camera movement. If you were doing something on Warzone or a game mode that uses third person. Now onto quality. So quality preset, I just recommend going to balance real quick. That'll have everything set up for you there. So Render resolution. Whatever your monitor is. Mine's 1080p, do 1080p. Don't do any lower. If you have to do lower for more FPS, um, I mean, I guess you have to make, you're going to lose some visual looks, but you get more frames. But if you can, do your, whatever your monitor is. Upscaling and sharpening. So there's quite a few, right? AMD and NVIDIA, I recommend whatever card you have, you can do that. But this one is the best one for the best looks, without losing any FPS. If you need more FPS, AMD FSR and image scaling for NVIDIA is where to go. It'll make your game look a bit worse, but it'll help with the FPS, and FPS is kind of crucial in a shooter like this. So also with this, you want, I guess it's up to you. I like the sharpness, so max it out, put it to 0. Doesn't matter, won't affect your FPS. Anti-aliasing, right? I use Filmic. SMA, it makes sharp lines. I don't like the sharpness. I like a smoother look. But your quality, do low. It doesn't affect anything from what I've seen. It gives you more FPS when you go to low, but I don't see a visual difference. Video memory scale. So basically, if you're getting some random stutters, you can go ahead and lower this and try and see if that helps. But VRAM's what's on your graphics card. So if you have stuff running in the background, you are going to want your VRAM scale to be a bit higher. Also, if you run this at a higher graphics level, you're going to want it to be higher just to help out with your card not, stuttering and such. Yeah. Texture resolution. Very low looks terrible, as you can see. Use low. Low's the best middle ground in my opinion, but normal does look slightly better. So if you want a bit better visuals, you can do normal, but I will do low just for the most FPS. Texture filtering. Do high. As you can see here, it's kind of like it's soft. You don't see any detail. But right here you get some good detail, and I barely have seen any bit of FPS difference. Nearby level of detail. So depending on the detail you want, I use high. I think high looks the best. I think high works the best. But yeah, distant level of detail, I also do high. As you can see, it doesn't say anything about performance, but I think high, it'll make the game look better from a distance and up close. Clutter draw. Depends if you want to see stuff from further distances. I like long because I like being able to see stuff. Because, saying you're playing something, someone could be in the grass, you might be able to see that better. Particle quality. Low. Low, low, low. Do low. You don't need a good quality particle level, look. It's not worth the impact of FPS. Particle quality level. Very low. Very, very low. It doesn't need to look good. It's just for a split second and it tanks FPS. Bullet impacts. I recommend on. Personally, it won't really give you any FPS increase off or on, but I think it just adds some subtle detail to the game if you're shooting a wall or something. Persistent damage levels or layers. Sorry. Turn that off. It really tanks FPS when there's a ton of explosions, RPGs, jokers going off. You will visually see imprints in the ground, and it does tank some FPS. I've lost 3 to 4 FPS just when that happens. So do not have that on. Shader quality. I recommend medium. Low is fine if you need more FPS, but make the game look pretty good still. I recommend medium because it will make the shadows still look pretty detailed. Tessellation. You don't want all. It's gonna make your GPU run a lot harder than it needs to. Near is where I think it's sweet spot, unless you want off for the slightest bit of FPS gain. But I think it just looks better with a little bit more detail embedded into the ground, or just game in general. On-demand texture streaming. Turn that off. You don't need it. It hasn't helped forever, and it probably never will. It does help, I guess, if you're on a higher quality screen, but 1080p, 1440, you're not going to see a difference. Streaming quality. So, do normal. You don't want low. It'll make everything at a distance look bad if it's that low. Normal makes the game look pretty good just overall. And that's your best bet. So volumetric, I recommend medium. I think I think it's a good in between because you can see some detail in the sky, but it doesn't destroy, or just fog, but it doesn't destroy your FPS. And FPS is very important in a shooter, as we all know. So medium's definitely your sweet spot. Deferred physics off. Turn that off. You don't want that. That tanks FPS in Warzone. It tanks it in just maps with water. It tanks it. It's not good. It looks cool, right? But you want FPS. Water quality as well. Default. You don't. It may look cool, but that effect on FPS is just it is ferocious, guys. Shadow map resolution. I recommend normal to low. Um, you don't say want to have it on very low because it will look terrible, but you do want some detail there in case somebody you can see in a shadow. That's the biggest reason I think you want it on normal. Screen space shadows. So I want to say you want to do low because high it affects the weapons and characters, so your character will look terrible. If you turn it off, it'll just look bland, and like gold or the camos you may earn, they're not gonna look good. So if you want a better looking camo, go ahead and go high. But some people you can prioritize FPS over the looks. Low is definitely the best in betweener. Spot shadow quality. Do medium. Um, I don't think it's worth having it on high because the amount of memory it uses just trying to remember the catch. It's just not worth it. But it does help with frame rendering. It makes it much quicker. Spot catch. So this basically just remembers stuff. How much VRAM you want it to use. So I use Ultra because I have an 8 gig card. That's not very high, but it will not max it out, especially with the settings we're applying right now. But I think Ultra is your best bet there because it'll use the amount of whatever remembering it can do to help with your FPS. Particle lighting, low. You don't want high particle lighting. It'll help. It will basically give you the disadvantage. Seeing how bright stuff is and everything like that, it doesn't help you. Ambient occlusion, turn that off. Static is okay, I guess, but I think off's your best bet for FPS here. Also, shadows are a lot darker when you have any of those on, so it does not help with you seeing the enemy if they are hidden in a darker spot. Screen space reflections, go ahead and do normal. Some reflections, such as like through water, you want to be able to see a little bit of detail. You don't want it to be just a blank hole of sadness. You want some detail. Static reflection quality. Now, probably do low because the static, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. When you're running around, you're not going to notice it, the reflections, especially if they're static. Weather grid volumes, go ahead and do low. You want a little bit of detail applied by the weather, but you don't need much. Low would just probably be if you're like looking at a puddle and it's raining. You see little driplets. Other than that, it's not worth taking any more FPS, taking a hit of the FPS. Post-processing effects. Turn all that off. 0 and off. I guess if you're playing campaign, Death of Field is alright. But if you're not doing campaign, you want the most frames, turn that off. Motion blur, it's a disadvantage. It doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, right? Film grain, 0. It'll add some visual noise, and it just doesn't look good. You want more detail? Turn that off. 100% will give you more detail. Other than that, guys, those are the best settings for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 right now. If you guys did enjoy the video, consider giving a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. And I will talk to you guys later. Peace.